What's going on, everyone? My name is Jake. This is Where I Talk Capes, and today we are back to talk about Superman. So this is your official spoiler warning. We are going to be talking about all the spoilers, going to be talking about all the big plot points, all the things that I loved. We're going to be getting into more detail on all the things I loved about this movie, talking about this movie. Obviously, I made a non-spoiler video last week. That came out last Friday, the day the movie came out. I'd already seen it twice by then. I have now seen it one more time. I've seen it 3 times now. So I just want to talk about all the things in this movie that I loved, and things in this movie that worked for me. And I'm just going to, really get into it and really kind of talk more in depth about everything here, because there's a lot to love in this movie. It's my movie of the year so far. Like, I don't think it's better than Sinners, but like for me, it does more for me than Sinners does. Not by a lot, admittedly, but this is for me my thing I've enjoyed the most this year, for sure. But let's just get right into it, and let's just start with the opening of the movie. The movie opens with a crawl kind of reminiscent of Star Wars, I guess, and James Gunn spoke a lot about how the DCU was going to be like Star Wars and not be like the MCU, and I really appreciated that, and I kind of had an understanding of what that meant conceptually before I saw this film, but after seeing this film, it's very, very clear. Even A New Hope, Star Wars, original Star Wars, that just starts in the middle of all this. We're in a well-defined world. We get this, a wall of text at the start, giving us a kind of brief idea of what's going on and all that we need to know for going into this, and then the movie just starts. And then we get the prequels, and the prequels are already in a world that has existed for, thousands and thousands and thousands of years of like lore and backstory that we're not explicitly told, but we just have the answers by watching this film. They don't necessarily hold our hands and go, and this is what happened here, and now this is this, and now we're getting a flashback, and now this, because this, and now Vader's here. Like, it just happens. We watch the movie, we understand the movie. And I really like that, because obviously with Star Wars you can tell stories from the entire history of everything. You can set stories in the Old Republic, and you can set stories and during Order 66 and after Order 66, like Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor, the video games. Obviously you got Knights of the Old Republic, the video games as well. You can explore all that in expanded media. And again, with the DCU, I really like this. We can go to, back to like the Justice Society of America. Not to jump ahead, but there is a mural in the Justice Gang's base, and you see like Jay Garrick's Flash and stuff like that. So these people have existed, and I love that this movie just tells us that this has already been happening, and this is what goes on in this world. Because the opening crawl reads, I believe, 300 years ago, the first metahumans came to Earth, ushering in the era of gods and monsters, which is obviously the kind of name of the first phase of the DCU. So it says 3 centuries ago, the first metahumans arrived on Earth. 3 decades ago, a Kryptonian pod crashed on a farm in Kansas with a baby Kryptonian. It's 3 years ago, Superman reveals himself to the world, the most powerful metahuman of all. 3 months ago, I believe it is. No, it's not 3 months ago. It's 3 weeks ago. Superman stops the Baravian invasion of neighbouring country Jorhampur. 3 days ago, the Baravian metahuman, the Hammer of Baravia, arrived in Metropolis looking for Superman. 3 hours ago, Superman lost his last fight, and then he comes crashing down to Earth in Antarctica for that scene that we saw revealed a few months ago, where Krypto comes and saves him and brings him back to the Fortress of Solitude. Now, in that, we do notice that there isn't anything about saying 3 months ago, but we find that out later, and it's not explicit. I kind of worked this out after. I know it's not like explicit, it kind of is, but it's something that it's kind of easy to miss, and I picked up on it afterwards, and it made me really happy. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I really like this opening for many reasons. One, again, like I say, it drops us in a world that's already existed. We don't need to see the origin of Superman again. We don't need to see how this universe became. And whilst I love and appreciate the MCU, it starts us off with the beginning of the universe, essentially. I know obviously we have movies that are set in the past with Captain America, obviously, and obviously as well Captain Marvel. However, it picks us up where this world really goes off the rails, I guess, in the terms of the MCU. As if, what if all these people were in the real universe, or in the real world? What if all these heroes existed in the real world? And the ramping up and the scaling of that kind of goes from there. But this movie doesn't do that, and I really appreciate that with the DCU, because we've seen it forever with superhero movies that are like, what if this is set in the real world? How would the real world be if Superman was here? That was obviously famously the pitch that David S. Goyer had when he wrote the script for Man of Steel. How would the real world react to this? And I think, really, with the exception of Burton and then by extension Schumacher's Batman movies, and even still, they feel not all grounded necessarily. The Burton and Joel Schumacher movies, but like they still kind of feel tethered to a sense of the real world. Obviously, Nolan wrote his Batman movies specifically to the confines of the real world, and didn't want, to kind of push it further than that. Obviously, the Batman exists in what Matt Reeves calls a heightened reality, so it's obviously very, very tethered to the real world. And like I say, obviously Man of Steel, the jumping off point for the DCEU, was based on a script for what would happen if Superman came to Earth in the real world, and how would governments and militaries and things like that react to that. This doesn't. Instead of translating the comics to the real world, this just wants to make a movie that feels like the comics. And I also like the fact it feels like just going into your local comic book shop, picking up a random issue of Superman and going, oh, what's going on? Because comics can have a reputation of being hard to get into, and I think that's fair. And I think a lot of people think you need to pick or find the character you like and find the number one, but what is the number one? Because there's been loads of number ones to sell more comics and things like that, and it is hard. And it can be really hard and really daunting, but if you just pick up a comic book, any comic book, if you go to your local comic book shop and you pick up, I don't know, whatever the newest, the Superman or Spider-Man or Batman or Green Arrow or Flash or whatever it is, whatever the newest single issue, you'll understand. You will pick it up. You will get a sense. You might not know every character right away, but you'll get a sense of who people are, and this movie does that really, really well. And I should probably go on and actually talk about the plot instead of just just what I like about how this movie drops us in. But it's something I really, really appreciated about this. It's setting itself apart from other versions of comic movies, and it's setting itself apart from the MCU as well, in the sense that this feels so distinct and this feels like its own thing, and it doesn't feel like a cheap imitation of the MCU. And whilst obviously the cinematic universe was essentially coined and made popular by the MCU, doing this is its own completely different thing, and I really appreciate that. But as mentioned, the movie does begin when we see Superman after losing his first ever fight, and Krypto's jumping on him and bringing him back to the Fortress of Solitude to get blasted with radiation from the Yellow Sun right into his head, whilst all the Superman robots hold him down, like in that first look that I reacted to a few months ago. Now, there was something cut out of that first look, for spoiler reasons. Bradley Cooper and Angela Sarafian. So Bradley Cooper, obviously very, very famous actor. Angela Sarafian, I believe her name is. She was in Westworld. They are there as a hologram as Kal-El's parents. They are there as Jor-El and Lara as his parents, with a message that they sent in the pod with him. This message has been damaged about halfway through, but the half that he has is a message that says, "You are our son, we love you, you're the last hope for Krypton, go, be good, go to Earth, you are a powerful being, go to Earth with love in your heart," essentially, is what the first half of that message says. It says, "We love you, do us proud, go here and continue our legacy." And it's this nice thing they play, and it makes them feel all happy and warm inside, and I enjoyed seeing Bradley Cooper. I thought it was a lot of fun, and again it means if he does want to do more, we can do more. We'll get to that in a bit, but it's nice to have him in. I thought it was fun, and I like Bradley Cooper, so this was cool. There's also Angela Sarafian, I'm pretty sure her name is. If it's not, then it'll be here. She's great. Admittedly, now they don't get a lot to do here, but still, I thought it was fun. We also see here, we really get the first scene, or the first look at David's version of Superman. This Superman is loving, he is caring, he is happy, he is everything Superman should be. He's a big fucking geek. He's talking to the Superman robots, and he's like, "Hey, thanks guys for protecting me and keeping me safe." And number 4, voiced by Alan Tudyk, is just going, well, we are robots, we don't have feelings or emotions, so we can't appreciate the fact that you're saying thank you to us. And he's still being so nice and polite and cordial to them. And he turns around to the new one, number 12, I believe is voiced by Pom Klementieff, and she starts chuckling because he looked at her, which I think is really, really funny. But again, we see this version of him, this happy, smiley, goofy 40s version of him, and then when he gets up from getting blasted by the sun, he's like, golly. And then Krypto has, when we see Krypto, obviously he's been wrecking the gaff, and he looks at Krypto, he's like, "What the hey, dude?" He just says all of these things. And I'm fairly sure he calls someone chum, and he does all this real silly, sort of Silver Age 40s, corny stuff, but it works. And Corn Sweat, I said it in my last video, Corn Sweat's just, his version of Superman is so sincere, and one of the major things for Snyder's version, or Snyder's vision for what Superman is and how to make Superman cool, just completely lacked sincerity. And I kind of feel like a lot of Zack Snyder films lack sincerity. And I understand people have a great attachment to that universe and a great attachment to Zack Snyder and his movies, even though they're all bad, except for maybe 300. But he does everything to be cool. He's a cool filmmaker, and he to me, his movies don't really have heart. And the one thing Superman should have is heart and sincerity and abundance. And from this very first scene, I already feel more of an attachment to this version of Superman than I ever did to Snyder's version of Superman. You know, in all the movies we saw with Snyder's Superman, in 5 minutes of this movie, I'm already more invested in what Cornyn Sweat and James Gunn are bringing to the table. It then cuts back to Metropolis with the Hammer of Baravia laying waste to Metropolis in absence of Superman after he has defeated him. Superman comes back, and we see in Luthor Corp, in the little bridge going between the two buildings where Lex has a little command center set up, that they are controlling the Hammer of Baravia. They have sort of computers set up, and he's pointing at people and he's saying, he's giving them a command, and they're putting in a command input, and he's, laser visioning an office block. And then when Superman comes back, they're putting in all these input commands to fight Superman and to beat up Superman. And he fucks him up again, beats him again, and then flies off to down the road, flies off to a riverbank, walks through a portal that people set up, goes into like a weird kind of alternate reality thing, weird dark dimension, comes out the other side, and he is back in the bridge at Luthor Corp, and everyone starts saying, Ultraman's here, Ultraman, way, Ultraman. And obviously, if you know your comics, you know that Ultraman is an alternate reality version of Superman from Earth 3 and the Crime Syndicate. Earth 3 is like the bad Earth, the Crime Syndicate is the Justice League, but they're all bad guys. You've got Ultraman and Owlman and stuff like that. Yeah, so they are the Earth 3 version of the Justice League, the Crime Syndicate of America. It's Ultraman, it's Owlman, it's Johnny Quick, it's the Sea King. It's fun, it's silly, it's comics, but Ultraman is the name of that. And, I had a theory that maybe came true. But we'll leave it there. Because Ultraman, as we see, as the Hammer of Baravia, has all of Superman's powers. He's quick, he's powerful, he can fly, he's got laser vision. Keep that in mind. I'm fairly sure this then goes into a scene where we see Lex Luthor at the Pentagon having a conversation with government officials. It might not go right into this, but if it doesn't, it's still here anyway. And Lex Luthor is pitching to the government that he have control, that they buy out a defense contract with Luthor Corp to deal with the metahuman threat, to deal with the Kryptonian threat. If Superman goes bad, he should be the one there. He has created Ultraman in a lab. We've also met the engineer at this point. We see her kind of fly down and nearly break into, or find the Fortress of Solitude at the start when Superman is all fucked up. And he just says, I have the Raptors, my flying soldiers. I have Ultraman, who is a metahuman that I created in a lab, and he can do everything that Superman can do, and he's my friend, so he'll do what I say if you let Luthor Corp have the defense contract. We also have the engineer, who was an ex-special ops agent who Luthor put nanites in her blood, and now she can create anything she can think of. It's the engineer from the comics, from the Authority comics. And again, another major win for this movie, another major plus for this movie is the fact that the engineer is such a, I would say, a C. The Authority are at most a C tier team, not in terms of power, but in terms of popularity. I think the Authority are such a deep cut, and for James Gunn to feel so bold to put them in this movie, or to put the engineer in this movie, when the engineer's not even, especially the second engineer, Angie Spica, isn't one of the first names that comes to mind when you think of the Authority. You think of, Jenny Sparks and stuff like that. I'd probably say the engineer would be fifth in the list for me, probably. It's still really, really cool to see her here, and again, her powers are well defined. Luthor gives a quick wee explanation. We've put nanobots in her blood, and she can now create anything and do anything, and is cool and badass. And that's kind of it. And Luthor basically pitches to the government that he should be in charge of the defense contract if Superman goes bad. I'm looking at my notes here. Yeah, I am just going through this movie vaguely chronologically, but the next big part here is we have a scene at the Daily Planet. One of two scenes at the Daily Planet, which I don't think is enough. I mentioned it in my previous video. I wanted more from the Daily Planet. I wanted to see more of Perry. I wanted to see more of Jimmy Olsen in that set. I wanted to see more of Cat Grant. I wanted to see more of Steve Lombard. I wanted to see more of them. And obviously there's a lot of Lois Lane and there's a lot of Jimmy Olsen as well. But I feel like the Planet, especially considering something we'll talk about later on, should have had more of a presence in this movie. And I don't necessarily know where it would go, because I kind of think the movie's the perfect length. It has no real pacing issues. But I just personally would have liked to have seen more of the Planet. But this first scene at the Planet, we see that Clark has the front page story, and he's all hunched over in his suit that's kind of ill-fitting, and he's bumbling, and he's got his silly hair and his glasses, and he's goofing off with Jimmy Olsen. But we see that he, wrote the front page spread about Superman fighting the Hammer of Bravia, and then obviously Clark got an interview with him because Superman likes Clark Kent, and he's been letting him do interviews. He's been letting him interview him for the Daily Planet, and he's on the front page, and it's a good little fun scene, and Jimmy is there being fun at him and Clark goofing off, but Lois is really like pressuring Clark. She's kind of saying like, and Superman let you interview him again, and how did you get this interview? He's like, oh yeah, he's a good guy. We're buds. He lets me interview him, and Lois is really quite skeptical here, and it's immediately the perfect introduction to Lois Lane. It's the perfect version of Lois Lane. Like, I think Amy Adams was good as Lois Lane at first, and then she just gets less and less to do, and then she just becomes a plot device. But I believe it is in Man of Steel. It's in Man of Steel or in Batman vs Superman. There's a bit where she turns to Perry White and she goes, "I'm a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, Perry. You've got to let me do the story." But we've never ever seen her do anything like that. We've never seen her be this version of Lois Lane, whereas Rachel Brosnahan's Lois Lane is inquisitive, and she's strong, and she's independent, and she's stubborn as all fuck, and you can just see all of that there. And she's wearing purple. She's wearing purple. Fantastic. I absolutely love this scene, and again, it really shows us who Lois is, already so well defined. And then we get to one of the most important scenes of the movie for me, and one of the best scenes of the movie for me, and that is the dinner and interview scene. And as I mentioned at the start, there's a glaring sort of lack in the 3 crawl. It's 3 months. We find out at this scene that Clark and Lois have been on. This is the 3-month anniversary of their first date, so that's a 3-month thing, which I think is really nice. And they just have this scene where Clark's making some food, and Lois is kind of saying like, if you keep interviewing, if Superman keeps getting interviewed by Clark Kent, people are going to twig. And he's got one apparently. He just goes, yeah, but the glasses. It's so funny. It's great. And then he offers Lois an interview with Superman, so she interviews him, and this is where the dynamic is perfectly summed up for me. Lois does not go easy on him at all. She refuses to take the foot off the brakes because it's her boyfriend. She refuses to do that. She sees obviously that Superman, by going to Bravia and stopping the invasion of Jarhanpur, has created an international conflict. It has created an international incident between 2 neighbouring countries on the other side of the world, one of which, Bravia, is a historic US ally, and the other one, Jarhanpur, has historically not been entirely friendly to Western interests, and things like that. And we see it later on. There's a lot of European-looking people with big guns and tanks and weapons, and then the Jarhanpurians are brown, wielding pitchforks and blades, and a couple people have guns, but it's very obviously what it means. Now, I will say this: if you are an Israeli or a Zionist, I don't want to conflate Israelis with Zionism, so I'll rescind that. If you are a Zionist who saw this scene, and later on in the movie, I'm jumping ahead here, but if you're a Zionist who you've seen this movie and you saw the soldier taking aim and taking the shot to kill a child, a brown child, on his homeland that you have invaded, if you saw that, and when those are obviously the bad guys, he thinks Israel are the bad guys without Israel ever being named, if you can see that, if you can see this fictional country, and you can immediately identify that the bad guys are the people that you identify with, if you can see that, and you can see that the person who you feel is encapsulating you as a person is the evident bad guy of this movie, you should look inward. And if you are still really solid in that belief, I think you should step on a landmine for fun. If you don't want to look inward and you don't want to change your worldview, then you should, you should just go. All Zionists bite the curb. However, in this interview scene, like I say, we see Lois Lane really, really go at Clark here. She really doesn't throw him any softballs. She doesn't throw him anything easy. It's all, quick, and it's all fast, and it's all intense, and it really catches Clark off guard. And there's a bit where they stop it, and she says, "How do you think this is going?" And he cracks a wee joke to say, "I think I'm doing great here." And she doubles down. She puts the pressure on even more and creates this atmosphere where, yeah, you are Superman, and yeah, you are someone I care about, but at the end of the day, this is who I am. And as a journalist, and as well as Superman, you should be feeling this pressure. It's not unreasonable to hold Superman to this standard, and I think it really sums up their relationship for me here, and it's absolutely fantastic. I think Rachel Brosnahan, like I said, I don't think she's my definitive Lois Lane yet, but I think it's very, very close to her and Margot Kidder. Like, it's very, very close to her and Margot. And it's only a matter of time before she is the definitive Lois Lane, in my opinion. We then have a few really important scenes back to back. Lex breaks into the fortress, kidnaps Krypto, destroys all the Superman robots, and the engineer, we finally get to see her powers on show here. She looks great. And she hacks into the system and decrypts her. And she manages to find the other half of the message that his parents left for him. That then leads us into the big fight with the kaiju in Metropolis, where Superman is saving all the people, saving a dog, saving a squirrel. I saw it and I got really excited. I was like, if this is fucking Chip, I swear to God. And with Lanterns being like next year and being entirely Earthbound, which I think is a mistake, but if we're only going to be seeing the Earthbound Lanterns and Guy Gardner is confirmed to be in it, God Almighty, give me Chip. Tell me that fucking squirrel is Chip. I want to see Chip in that show so bad. But in this fight, as he's fighting the kaiju, he saves the dog, he saves the squirrel, he makes sure an office block of people is okay, he's leading the fire and of the kaiju that's shooting up and into the sky, away from when it can hurt civilians. And even when the Justice Gang show up, who we will get to in a minute, he is trying to convince them to incapacitate the kaiju in a way that doesn't kill it, so it can take it off to be studied, or even if they do have to kill it, put it down in a way that's less brutal than, Mr. Terrific firing bombs into its stomach and just exploding them when it's in the stomach to kill the big kaiju. You have Guy Gardner's Green Lantern, who I said it in the previous video, I'm fairly sure, the Green Lantern powers are fantastic here, and Guy Gardner is fucking incredible. There's a bit where Isabella says Hot Girl is struggling against the kaiju, and he just gives it big oven gloves so its hands can't move. It's so funny. He's so Guy Gardner. But this scene again, it really shows what I love about this version of Clark. And then when that fight ends, we see that the engineer's been able to decrypt the other half of the message, and it turns out that Bradley Cooper's Jor-El, the message he sent with him, wasn't just to send him to protect her, it was to send him to make it Krypton 2. Basically, in the second half of this message says they are a weak, feeble-minded people, they are not an advanced civilization, you are stronger, be a god, take many wives, revive Krypton. And it just really throws out his belief. He spent the whole start of his life and the whole first 30 years of his life and his time as Superman believing he was sent here to protect everyone, and that twist shows that he wasn't. And I absolutely love this, because to me, I'm completely fine with it. It's not something I expected. And to be honest, it's not something I would have wanted if you had told me beforehand, but I think it's a really, really good, especially the way the rest of the movie plays off this. It's a really good way to look at things, a really good way to frame things, because at the end of the day, and this is the thing that really sums up the difference between Cornsweet's and Cavill's Superman. I suppose I should say Gunn's and Snyder's Superman, because Cavill really wanted to make a big, fun, hopeful Superman movie, and he spoke very openly about that. I think the difference between their iterations of the character is fairly summed up by the fact that Snyder saw Superman as a Kryptonian, whereas Gunn sees Superman as the Kansas farm boy. Snyder's Superman protected humanity out of some guilt and this feeling that he was better than everyone, so it was his responsibility to protect everyone because everyone is beneath him and Earth won't be able to save itself without him. Whereas Superman is protecting everyone because he is one of them. He is protecting everyone because he wants everyone to flourish and life to be good and happy, because he sees himself as human. And just because he has all these additional powers doesn't mean he is anything less. I truly feel that, Snyder sees Superman as Kal-El, Gunn sees Superman as Clark Kent. And that's the fundamental difference between the two portrayals. That's what I love about this. Because Jor-El sent him here with a different purpose than we first thought. Jor-El sent him here to take over the world, but he didn't know that. And when he saw that message, when he saw the start of that message, he's seen his responsibility to be to protect this world, and he does that with no issue, because this is his world, this is his home, this is where he grew up, this is where he's from. He may be Kryptonian, but he is human, and that's the fundamental characteristic of Superman that I adore. The next kind of really important scene then is Clark goes back to his apartment. He goes back to the fortress after that message is broadcast. He goes to the fortress to find out what's going on, because it could only be got from there. He finds the fortress in ruin. Questions how it happened, because the entrance is coded to his DNA. Finds out that Krypto's been kidnapped and the Superman robots are all fucked up. And then one of the most important scenes again in this film comes right after that. Clark goes back to his apartment that night. It's where we saw the first photo of of the suit reveal with the big, the big fucking whatever in the background, and he goes in, and Lois is already in his apartment, and he has this conversation with her where they kind of talk about. Oh, we see the where's the dog scene where he fucking breaks into Luthor's office and gets rage baited. But it's after that we see him. He spent the night trying to find Krypto. And when he comes in, Lois says, we see this big orb in the sky, and we see the Justice Gang fighting it. And when she comes in, or when he comes in, Lois says, "Oh, were you fighting that?" He's like, "No, it's just a dimensional imp," I believe he says, an interdimensional imp. They've got that handled. And I, again, love this. The world is full of metahumans and kaijus and dimensional imps and all of this, and that's just normal. And the fact that he just brushes it off and goes, "Nah, they've got that. I was actually out looking for Krypto." And we see this scene where, the two of them talk, and Superman says, there's a warrant out for his arrest, and he's going to turn himself in because it's probably the only way to find Krypto. And there's a beautiful, beautiful line where, Lois kind of questions it, if he's doing all this for the dog, and he goes, "Yeah, and he's not even a very good dog, but he's out there alone and scared, so I need to go and save him." And that is it. He has to save everything. He wants to save everyone and everything. And we see the scene where he tells Lois that he loves her for the first time, and someone on Twitter was like, "Oh, they made it clear that they've only been dating for 3 months, and he said that he's in love with her, but that's silly writing because James Gunn's bad." Rachel Brosnahan looks me in the eye. I'm telling her I love her day one, first of all. Second of all, do you know anything about Superman? There are 2 things we need to remember. 1, he is all-powerful, but good. And 2, he fucking loves Lois Lane. After Clark then turns himself in, he gets arrested, and he gets taken to Lex's pocket universe, which we saw earlier on in the movie. There's another part of the movie actually that I did miss earlier on, when Lex has a conversation with the president of Bravia, and it says that he is helping the president of Bravia to take over Jarhanpur so Lex can have half of the country. Lex says something about opening a donut shop in his half of Jarhanpur. We don't really see it then, but we see more of it later on. But he turns himself in, gets taken into what we now know as Lex's pocket reality that he created by replicating the Big Bang. Superman gets put in a cell with Metamorpho, who we see for the first time, and we see then that Lex has kidnapped Metamorpho's son, Baby Joey, and is making him create kryptonite to weaken Superman, so Lex can, get some answers and beat Superman finally. We have that amazing scene in the Pocket Universe. Later, obviously, Lois goes to the Justice Gang to help them. Mr. Terrific has a way to track Superman. We get the Mr. Terrific fight scene, the aura farming scene at the old military base where they have the portal that we saw from earlier on with the Hammer of Bravia and with Ultraman. And we get to see Mr. Terrific in action. We get to see the dynamic of the Justice Gang. We get to see Guy Gardner just being fucking insufferable, which is the perfect depiction of Guy Gardner. And, again, Mr. Terrific isn't a hero that is incredibly well known. Metamorpho's not a hero that's incredibly well known to the general public. But through just watching this movie, we understand it. We understand Mr. Terrific. We understand Guy Gardner. We understand Metamorpho. We maybe don't understand Hawkgirl enough. I'd like to have seen more of Hawkgirl. We've spoken about that before. But again, that fight scene with Mr. Terrific at the old military base is fantastic. They then open the portal to go into the Pocket Universe to save Superman. But in this scene as well, Metamorpho changes his tune after Lex murders an innocent man. There is a shawarma vendor who gave Superman shawarma before, or falafel before rather, who saves him, who comes to help him at the start of the movie, and Lex just picks him because he's helped Superman, and plays a game of Russian roulette with Superman to get him to give him answers about all these things so he can help bring Superman down. And in this scene, the gun goes off and he kills Malik. And all 3 times I've seen it, someone in the crowd gasped, loudly gasped. This Lex is evil, he is cunning, he is a genius, he is perfect as Lex. Nicholas Hoult is perfect as Lex. And this scene sums it up. This Lex isn't afraid to get his hands dirty, but he's doing it on his terms. He's controlling the media against Superman with the Where's the Dog scene, and in here he kills an innocent man to get to Superman. And in this scene, Metamorpho stops producing kryptonite, produces something like a sun to help charge Superman back up, and they escape the pocket dimension in a really, really fun scene. And I'd just like to say to people who don't think that Superman is powerful, this Superman managed to escape the gravitational pull of a black hole whilst carrying 3 different people, Metamorpho, Baby Joey, and Krypto with his freeze breath in a pocket dimension with no sun, because Metamorpho created something like a sun. He's only at most half power here, and he comes out of that alive. Fantastic. After they escape from the Pocket Universe, then they go to Kent Farm to recover. They go back to Kent Farm. They meet Martha and John, and oh my god, Pruitt Taylor Vince and Neva Howell are fantastic here. Absolutely incredible. There's that talk that he has with Pa Kent on the bench outside. But in general, she's the star here for me, is Neva Howell. I adore her. There's a scene at the start when Clark's at the planet from earlier that I mentioned, and she phones him, and she's got the phone on speaker, but she's down, leaning over the table to talk to the phone. The phone's here, and she's leaned right over it. It's amazing. It's really, really funny and really, really sweet. And again, sincerity is the main kind of thing I took away from this film. It's so sincere and so heartfelt, and those two especially are so heartfelt and so sincere and so fucking perfect. And from Kent Farms we then go into the final act, the third act, and there's an assault on two fronts. We have the Baratheon military going to invade Jarhanpur again, and we have Lex's Pocket Dimension ripping a hole in the fabric of reality and tearing a big rift through Metropolis. So where does Superman go? Does he go to Baravia to protect does he go to Jarhanpur to protect the Palestinians, or does he go to Metropolis? And it sets it there. But again, we see it here. We see Metamorpho and we see Hawkgirl and we see Guy Gardner all watching the news as the news is reporting from Jarhanpur, and the parallels to the 2018 Gaza border protests are not subtle here at all. And again, something I mentioned earlier, a Baratheon soldier goes to shoot a Jarhanpurian boy in the head from 5 feet away. Now, Guy Gardner saves him. If you see that and you're like, whoa, the guy shooting the child, that's obviously bad, that's me, and that's anti-Semitic. No, you're a bad person. But we see it, they do split it. Mr. Terrific and Superman and Krypto, they go to Metropolis, they go stop what's going on in Metropolis and fight Ultraman and the Engineer, and Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl and Metamorpho go to Jarhanpur to stop the invasion of Jarhanpur. And we do have a Baratheon president in this movie who is, a real parallel for Netanyahu. And Hawkgirl fucking kills him. One of the things I did forget to mention, though, that I want to come back to here, and I just want to kind of to wrap it all up into one bit here, is the Jimmy Olsen subplot, which is a lot of fun. The first time we see Jimmy Olsen, there are a pretty woman in the Daily Planet looking over at him and giggling. We see a photo of him on his desk with a beautiful woman on either side, and he looks bored. We then find out that Eve Tessmacher, who is Lex's girlfriend, who's been taking all the selfies everywhere they go, is Jimmy's ex, and he hates her. And she is in love with Jimmy Olsen because he's the CEO of sex. And after Superman escapes the pocket reality, Lex gets mad and just tells her to leave and throws shit at her, and she gets really upset. She phones Jimmy. There's a scene where they've met, where she gives him some information. She's the one that tells Jimmy, who tells Lois, that they're keeping Superman in a pocket reality, and that's how she's able to kind of go to the Justice Gang and be like, hey, can you help me get him out, please? And she then phones Jimmy to say, I've got everything you need to take Lex down, but if you do, you have to spend the weekend with me. And Jimmy's like, fucking no! I don't want to spend the weekend with a woman! What the hell? No! I don't want to spend the weekend with a beautiful woman, but I guess, fine, send me it. She sends him it, and then what it is just all selfies. But in one of the selfies in the background, Lois sees that she took a selfie in front of a map. On that map, we see Baravia, and then over where Jarhanpur is, it's got a split down the middle to New Baravia and Luthoria, I believe it's called. And this is when Lois begins to put the story together of what Luthor's doing. And then we get to a scene where she goes back to the Daily Planet, whilst this rift is ripping through Metropolis and everyone's abandoning the Daily Planet. Perry is sat smoking a cigar, going, what have you got? And Jimmy and Lois have a big board with everything stapled to or pinned to it, being like, this, and this. And they reveal that Luthor has, over the last few years, sold 80 billion in arms to the nation of Baravia, however, only charged 1.4 billion or something like that. So with that, why? It's because he is now getting this land when they invade, they're putting it all together, and the Daily Planet breaks the story. So it's really an attack on three fronts here. You have Superman stopping the rift and fighting Ultraman and the Engineer. We have, the Justice Gang goes to Jarhanpur to save the citizens, and we have the Daily Planet leaking the story, which ultimately brings Lex Luthor down. And I think all three of them are perfect here because it shows everything that these characters are about. Superman inspired the hope for Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl and Metamorpho to go to Jarhanpur to save the civilians because Superman couldn't be there and Metropolis at the same time. We see Superman fighting Ultraman and the Engineer with Mr. Terrific and with Krypto and fighting the Raptors all together there, and Lois is bringing down Lex. So it's really a fantastic third act, I think, and it could feel overstuffed in a lesser movie, but I think it works perfectly here. However, in the course of the final fight, we do get the Ultraman reveal. I said at the time when he was revealed to be Ultraman, I thought it was going to be Bizarro. For those who don't know, Bizarro is a clone of Superman who is not all right, and he's a little bit silly and a little bit dumb. And we do find out that yes, Ultraman is a clone of Superman under the control of Lex, and that's why he's typing things in, and people are at their computers going, let's put in this input, and he'll fucking punch Superman in the face or whatever, and they have these little drone cameras flying around so he knows what he's going to do. Superman says, Krypto, get the toys, and Krypto destroys all the little drones, and then he gets in a fair fight with Ultraman. And I think he's not dead. He basically, at one point, Ultraman's got him in an armbar, he dislocates his shoulder to throw him over his arm, to turn his body, throw him into a bus that's falling into a black hole. The black hole hits Ultraman, Ultraman falls into the black hole and disappears and dies, maybe. I think we're going to see him come back as Ultraman, but also maybe more Bizarro, and I think they're just going to tie them both in, because I think Bizarro is more interesting to use in a Superman movie, but I do like the idea of the Crime Syndicate versus the Justice League, and I also don't think we should be doing two distinct versions of evil Superman in this universe, especially considering how many interesting villains Superman has, like Brainiac and stuff like that. So I think roll them into one. That's my schizo theory for going forward. But the final fight is good. It's not really about the final fight. The final fight is really just a build up to when the news breaks about Lex, the Daily Planet breaking the story about Lex. When he feels he's defeated, Superman and Krypto and Mr. Terrific come and save the day, and there's a great monologue at the end. There's a great speech at the end where Superman says, the problem with you, Lex, is you don't see me as human, but I get up every single day not knowing what I'm going to do, and I make mistakes, and I just try and get through the day like every human does. And in this final fight, the only physicality he has with Lex is when Lex is trying to run through the portal to escape from the bridge, which is also a ship. He flies through the window and just shoulder barges him so he can't go through. The real comeuppance Lex gets is Krypto tries to kill him. But ultimately, the final act of this movie, I'm kind of jumping all over the place here, but it's so good. It's so fucking good. I think the Jar-Hampor conflict and the Justice Gang coming to save them is fantastic. The fight with the Engineer and the fight with Ultraman is fantastic. I think Mr. Terrific and Krypto and Superman then going to the bridge of the fucking Luthor pod to stop Lex is brilliant. It's fantastic. And again, Eddie Gathegi is Mr. Terrific. I spoke about it in the last video. He is absolutely phenomenal. In terms of performances here, my top three would be Nicholas Hoult, then it'd be Eddie Gathegi, and then it would be Rachel Brosnahan. Very, very close. We've got David Cornsweet at 4, and to be completely honest with you, it's probably not Neva Hill. She's not in it enough for it to be her. But then it'd be Nathan Fillion. They're all. I mean, everyone in this movie is fantastic. But I think the movie just does such a good job at showing the hope and showing the life of Superman, the love that he has for people, and it feels like reading a Superman comic. And at the end, whilst the post-credit scenes don't really mean anything, the post-credit scenes are fun. There's a little kind of mid-credit scene of Superman and Krypto sitting on the moon overlooking Earth, and then there's a post-credit scene of, having Mr. Terrific goofing around. I'm not going to really spoil it, because like I say, it's not really that important. But the kind of big end to the movie is Kara comes back. Supergirl crashes through the roof to pick up her dog, because Krypto is actually her dog, which means Krypto is going to be in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. And she's a fucking mess. And I love that, because I'm really sick of Supergirl being kind of seen as this sort of gender-swapped version of Clark, and this paragon of hope and light and virtuosity and goodness, when Kara's a mess. The comic that it's based on, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, it starts with her in a bar, and Millie Alcock shows up, drunk. She essentially does what she done on the fucking stage at the Golden Globes or wherever it was she won that award when she was fucking blacked out. As Kara here, as Supergirl, when she shows up, and she says she's off to go and party more, and Superman kind of turns into Superman robot. She likes to go party on planets with red suns. There's a little bit of explaining here. He's just like, because with the yellow sun and with our powers, we can't get drunk on planets with yellow suns or whatever. It's like, yeah, it's like fine, whatever. But we could just say she likes to go and party around the universe. She loves being a party girl, and I love that because Supergirl is a mess. For those that don't know, Supergirl is Clark's older cousin. She is another survivor of Krypton. But because of time dilation, when she escaped, when she arrives on Earth, she's still 19, 20, 21, a young party girl mess, because she had to watch her entire planet fucking die, and her little baby cousin, who she's 20 years older than, is now older than her, because he arrived here as a baby and she went through some time dilation nonsense. So she remembers the fall of Krypton, and she has to deal with the baggage of that. And again, maybe we can add in the fact that she knows that Jor-El sent Clark to take over the world, and she knows that Krypton wasn't an idyllic society, and she knows that Krypton was actually maybe an evil empire, maybe a colonizing power out in space, and now it's gone, and she has to deal with the fact that her people were shitty, whereas Clark is human. She's trying to maybe shirk that and try and get away from that because of that and the guilt. She's a fucking riot, and we're going to see that in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, and I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. So that's me, 45 minutes into this recording, finally got through all the events of this movie and the things I loved, which is everything in this movie. I really, really enjoyed it. This is my spoiler talk of the video of the movie. Like I said, I'm probably going to make some more videos about things I want to see going forward. I don't want to make this video too long, but I absolutely adored this movie. Everything about this movie worked for me. Again, I thought the Jor-El twist works because, like I say, it's not as important to the character of Superman that the House of El are this like paragon of virtue. It is more important that he was raised right by the Kents. That's what's more important. It's not about Jor-El and Lara. It's about Martha and John. That's what matters to him. That's what makes him him. And listen, if the fan backlash is enough, and if they think it's a mistake, Brainiac manipulated it. You know, they say that top linguists and computer forensics guys verified its authenticity, but none of them speak Kryptonian. You know, maybe Kara can say, actually, this is bullshit because I speak Kryptonian, and that's not true. Or we could say it was Brainiac, or we could say it was any number of things. But I like it, and the movie ends with, again, at the start, when Superman comes to the Fortress of Solitude after getting beat by the Hammer of Bravia, number 4, Gary, as he names himself, Alan Tudyk, goes, "Would you like me to play the message that your parents left?" And it's Bradley Cooper and Angela Serafian. And then at the end he says, "Would you like me to play the video of your parents? It helps soothe it because it helps to soothe you." And it just shows clips of Neva Howell and Pruitt Taylor Vince's mom, Pa Kent, with a young Clark, and it's a gorgeous end to the movie as a punk rocker plays, and it's a glorious film, an absolutely incredible film, and I fucking loved it. So that's me finally gone through and talked about most to all of the spoilers about this movie and the things I loved about this movie again. So let me know what you thought of the movie down in the comments down below. If you've seen it once, if you've seen it twice, if you've seen it 3 times, if you've seen it 10 times, I want to know all of your thoughts. If you've seen it multiple times, did it get better? Did it get worse? Did it stay the same? I really want to know all of your thoughts in the comments down below. Let me know everything you thought about this film. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Tell all your friends about the handsome man on YouTube with the good Superman opinions. Once again, guys, my name is Jake. This is Where I Talk Capes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.